This is Wrestling News Now. I'm Todd Tanner. Check it out. Let's get down to it. I found an article online in Pro Wrestling Stories entitled Thesz, the Side Business Hustles of a Champion Wrestler. The article was written by author Ron Machico. I'm sorry. Okay, let's get down to it. Quote, Thesz lived quite a surprising life outside of the ring. Here we dive into the lesser-known side hustles of a champion wrestler. Thesz was recognized as a shrewd businessman during his wrestling career. When he was NWA champion and paid based on the percentage of the gate, Thesz would only deal in cash and demanded a statement from promoters showing the numbers for the event and deductions to make sure he was paid what he earned. Lou not only had great wrestling coaches, but he also had phenomenal business coaches. Ed Strangler Lewis and Ray Steele, Thesz's widow, Charlie Thesz, once said in the book Pro Wrestling, all that's left to know about the world's most entertaining spectacle. That business savvy carried outside of the ring as well. According to Tim Hornbaker's great book about the wrestling of the National Wrestling Alliance, Thesz made $50,000 to $60,000 per year during the 50s and supplemented his income of the St. Louis with his partial ownership of the St. Louis territory from 1948 to 1955. By 1961, Thesz had earned more than $2 million during his career. Phenomenal. Wow. To ease the heavy income tax bite on the wrestling purchases, Thesz and his second wife, Frida, invested his money in real estate in California after giving up breeding and training Doberman pinchers. Quote, cost me about $10,000 to win a few blue ribbons, he said. Thesz owned and lived in a beautiful 20-unit apartment house on La Jolla Beach in California called Pacific Manor. He loved food and had a big appetite, as he and his wife often hosted barbecues at their La Jolla home. The financial responsibility was different than many of his colleagues who blew their money and ended up with little to show for their years of work in the squared circle. Thesz, however, earned a reputation as a shrewd businessman. You know the story of most athletes, they end up broke, he said. I plan to end up a bookkeeper counting my money. Thesz expanded his real estate holdings with an investment in Arizona. He first wrestled in Phoenix on March 2nd, 1953, before an overflow crowd of Arizona's Madison Square Garden, defeating Gino Garibaldi in a best-of-three falls NWA Heavyweight Championship match. He occasionally traveled to Arizona's capital city after that match and became acquainted with the growth happening in the Valley of the Sun. In 1961, Lou and his wife Frida and two children moved to Phoenix, and he purchased the 6.5-acre Casa Siesta Lodge, located in part of the city with multiple resorts that attracted visitors from around the world. Thesz wasn't the only one wrestling royalty at Casa Siesta's grand opening, though as Gorgeous George also attended as a special guest. We came back to Phoenix 4 years ago for a visit, like what we saw, and bought the lodge, Thesz said in a September 5th, 1965 interview with the Arizona Republic. Newspaper ads build Casa Siesta as a truly unique Western resort with a beautiful and spacious grounds where you can relax in the firelit charm of the lodge. The warmth is reflected in hospitality and new Spanish decor throughout. Lovely luxurious wall-to-wall carpeting in the prelude to a new concept in custom Spanish furnishings. From golden lamps to original Spanish oils, a private sun patio separates each room as suite to ensure absolute quiet and privacy. Giant epaulets surround the beautiful and unusual plant life, making this oasis an unequal way of enjoying the West as it should be. There are 20 Casa Siestas as a beautiful firelit lodge, 60-foot plus swimming pool, and a putting green, all lying amid orange trees and framed by Camelback Mountain. The Thesz operated the facility as a resort during the winter tourist season, where you could rent a twin-bedroom Casa Siesta for $12 a night and a swim club during the summer. When Lou was home, he was very involved in maintaining and managing the property. Tree trimming, painting, whatever it took. This blue-collar attitude isn't surprising for a guy who grew up mending soles and smashing heels for his Hungarian immigrant father, who was a shoemaker. Thesz also fancied himself a gourmet and loved continental cuisine, which he offered at his resort and was unique to the area. Lou imported a Belgian chef to meet his menu preferences. Phoenix isn't, well, that's awesome, man. You never know what people are into. That's why it pays to research and study and learn. Phoenix is a meat, potatoes, and bourbon town, Thesz said in the December 19th, 1962 edition of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We think it's ripe for a continental touch. Kurt Holbrook, son of wrestler Vic Holbrook, posted a story on the Lou Thesz message board in March 2005 about how Kurt and his dad would visit Thesz at his resort every week. Mr. Thesz loved good food and loved to cook. In Phoenix and Scottsdale, there are large waterways of an irrigation system for all the produce areas. Us kids would go to the irrigation ditches as they became shallow at the end of the summer, and we would wade in and procure all the crawfish we could carry. Mr. Thesz would give us a penny apiece for the little red guides. Then he would whip up a feast of these shelled creatures to us all. While Thesz spent most of his time on the resort, he occasionally grappled with opponents at Madison Square Garden, Central Stadium in downtown Phoenix. He usually traveled the world, capitalizing on his wrestling fame to earn bigger paychecks. One stretch saw him wrestling in India 4 times in 10 days, including one show in New Delhi in front of 60,000 fans. After wrestling, Thesz would return home for more mundane tasks, such as hanging drapes. In 1963, Lou stepped away from a full-time wrestling schedule to give full-time attention to the lodge. That lasted a year before the former world champion had to return to the ring. It was a difficult world, Thesz said of his year of leisure in a December 15, 1966 interview with the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. I'd sit around, puff on those cigarettes, drink me a highball now and then, and before long I was feeling lousy. I needed something to do, so I went back. Though Thesz sold Casa Siesta in 1968 and considered building homes in a Phoenix suburb, once he was asked why he was continuing building real estate empires only to liquidate them, Thesz smiled, his enigmatic smile, getting in cheap and getting out when the price is right. Lou said softly, is the name of the game. That sounds like what? Flipping houses of today. What's old is new, and what's new is old. See, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing new under the sun, whether people believe it or not. All right, let me pick up where I left off at. By 1970, Thesz was mostly retired from wrestling, but was still very active when it came to his entrepreneurial interests. In April of that year, Thesz started Champion Carpets, where he imported carpet from around the world. Through connections he made wrestling in other countries. He started with 2 locations and expanded to 6 by September, 5 in Phoenix and another in Tucson. The plan was to open 30 franchises around the state eventually. Thesz attended the grand openings and attempted to attract fans and prospective customers with free autograph photos. When you needed the last shag rug to carpet your bathroom, Thesz wanted you to shop at his store and utilize the interior design services of his wife Frida, who was a talented artist and had an interior design business. Dave Meltzer wrote in his book Tributes to that Thesz lost so much money that in 1973 went back to wrestling at age 56, working mainly for Nick Gallus in Tennessee for $100 a night. Thesz left Phoenix in 1973 after living there for 12 years. Wow. What a sad ending sometimes to greatness. Thesz's marriage to Frida came to an end in 1975. He later married Catherine Charlie Thesz, whom he met while wrestling in Tennessee, and remained with her for the rest of his life. The couple lived in Norfolk, Virginia for much of his later life. Lou Thesz, the one and only. I'm Todd Tanner for Wrestling News Now.